So let's kind of go into the present time now in your business. So maybe a Q&A. What's a mindset of a business owner, a team builder, an entrepreneur, where you're at right now in life?
Yeah, the idea is you gotta constantly be improving in those different areas of your life, because if you don't, you're either growing or dying, right? And if you don't do something for a long time, you'll start to dislike it. So again, to your point, if you don't work on your family time, eventually, believe it or not, as much as you think you won't, you'll start to dislike it. You'll start to like other things, right? And that's why it's important to just make a gradual increase in improving those little areas, because there's always going to be one area that is spiking. But in regards to business, I want to constantly challenge, myself. And part of challenging myself is I want to grow the business big enough so that everybody's dream can fit inside of it, right? Because if you don't continue to grow your business, then you're kind of doing a disservice to your employees, in that then you're not giving them the opportunity to grow. What drives me and fuels me today is not what fueled me, 8-10 years ago. Probably the thing that fuels me the most is I want to be able to give back to the employees and give them the opportunity that I have. So the bigger the skyline becomes, the more opportunity they have to have their dreams, Inspect what you expect.
And how would you break that down?
So, as your sales teams get better and as they grow, they're going to want to change things that they probably shouldn't change. And little things that they change can cause them to not have the production that they used to have. But, the more they know, the more they want to get their personality into the presentation. And you want to simplify it, right? And complexity is the enemy of execution. So if you start switching up your presentation every time, then it's going to be hard for you to replicate. You might be like the number one sales rep in the company, but you won't replicate yourself to save your life. And at the end of the day, I think it's about building people. Because if you're just a one-man show, you're going to have to be writing all the time, and God forbid you get sick, God forbid something happens to you, and you can't work, then you're not getting paid. Yeah. But if you start building people, now you start making a small amount on a lot of people, but then you're also helping them and paying it forward. You're changing lives at that point.
I remember going to some of your trainings, and as you mentioned, you kept things so simple. You would say, here's a script, just go to the door, read the script. And then we had a printout of 25, 24, 23, down to 1. If you knock on 25 doors, you'll get to the 1. You kept it very simple, and it was able to be duplicated and replicated.
So what exactly is it that you sell? So the audience gets clear.
So real quick, before we get into that though, it's important that, in sales, it's always a numbers game, right? You talk to if you have a good product, right? And I believe we have a good product, but if you talk to enough people, and here's the key, you have to say the same thing all the time, right? Because if you don't, it's almost like, then it's not a numbers game, right? It's almost like if you're trying to shoot a free throw,
all over
and
again.
The first time you do it with the right hand, the next time you do it with the left hand.
That's a good point.
The next time you do it with a hook shot, you're not going to have true numbers. So you got to keep it simple, and then you got to say the same thing all the time. Now, what most people say, well, that sounds robotic. Well, not if you know it so well, because if you know it so well, you don't even have to think about it. It's reflexive, right? And like I told you guys before, I've always been very shy. I've always been very timid, right? So ignorance gives you fear. When you don't know about something, you're going to be scared to talk about it. Make sense?
Ignorance gives you fear.
Ignorance gives you fear. Knowledge, when applied, that's the key word, when applied. Knowledge, when applied, gives you confidence. So if you know what you're going to talk about, because you've said it thousands of times,
and believe it,
even if you want to mess up, you can't.
Yeah.
Like I remember I did a speech 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I think we talked about it last time, where Kobe Bryant spoke.
Yeah.
And he's a big hero of mine, and
Absolutely.
I was like, man, I got to have my best work today. Man, I was so scared when I went up on stage. Like, you understand, my heart was going.
Yeah.
But I had prepared for that so much that even though I wanted to mess it up,
you've internalized it.
Yeah, but even though I wanted to mess it up with how nervous I was, I couldn't mess it up. like all of a sudden the words started coming out. I'm like, oh shoot, the words are coming out.
You practice it so much.
I had practiced it so much, right? So what happens is when you know what you're doing, where you're going, and why you're doing it, you operate out of certainty. And when you operate out of certainty, your enthusiasm and energy naturally come out. And everything is really about, I think, enthusiasm. Like, how do you stay excited about life? Well, you stay excited by having enthusiasm. Well, how do you get enthusiasm? By always having a purpose. That purpose is going to come with the challenges like we spoke about last time. And then your job is just to solve those challenges, and then boom, you have restricted freedom where you get to celebrate, you get to be present, and then you have another purpose. So the purpose is your hope. You got to have hope, meaning at all times of your life you got to have something to look forward to. And I think when you lose hope, you stop thinking of hope, and that's when you start to get bored of life. And then that's when I think you don't get excited anymore. But if you're enthusiastic, like, you're going to be excited about what you do.
Our audience is probably saying, okay, what I see the hat Skyline. We know what it is because we have the alarm system.
That's not what I was going to ask him.
I want to know because his hat says Skyline, right? So we see Skyline. People have heard of Skyline, but we have Skyline at our business, at our roofing business, at our marketing company, at our house. You've always taken great care of us. But tell us a little about Skyline, the security side, and also now the smart energy side.
So we're a professional sales, service, and installation company for home security and solar products, and so we do all that. But that's what we do. But we're really a personal development company.
I like that.
That just happens to be in the smart home arena, happens to be in the solar arena, right? We want to create an environment where people are unleashed to fulfill their God-given potential. So yeah, I mean, that's a great part of our business. I love it because they're both recession-proof businesses. They're both businesses that people need no matter what. If the economy drops, well, guess what? Now fear sharpens listening. All of a sudden, when people have fear, they start remembering what matters most, which is their family, their biggest asset, which is their home. Some of these things they take for granted, now they're like, oh shoot, we got to protect our house, right? So that's why it's recession proof. And then same thing with energy. Like, you can't say, oh, I don't want to pay for my energy bill, right? You're going to need it. And that's the big thing with the solar part, is that now you're able to help people eliminate that electricity bill that continues to go up year after year. Now in many cases,
eliminate their gas bills too, because we need to plug in the car.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Now in many times you could lower that bill, and now you save them $200. So you're really helping people. You're really saving lives. You're changing lives. So I love everything about my business, but the part I love the most is we're in the developing of people, and that's a big thing for me, just because I'm a byproduct of just being able to develop as a person.
And how do you do that?
Identity.
How do you develop people? What are some things that you do? Some principles, some practices other business owners can hear and see, and then apply it to their company?
So we do, like, every 2 weeks we have a master class, which will have a different topic that we'll talk about in regards to personal development. You're never going to out-earn your self-worth. That's something you'll hear me say a lot.
You're never going to
out-earn your self-worth. So deep down in your subconscious mind, you have a self-worth of yourself. Like, when it really comes down to it, you think you're worth $80,000. So what happens is you could have the talent to make 7 figures, but because your identity is only 80,000, you're never going to make 7 figures. What will happen is, Ed Milet talks about it in regards to a thermostat. So what happens is when you surpassed 80,000 and you start making 140, or you're on pace to making 140, or on pace to making 300, you will literally self-sabotage yourself
to go back,
to come back down to what you really think you're worth. So that's why it's so, the key is to build your identity, because you could only receive what your mind can accept. And you do that by association. You are who you associate with. And one of the many ways that you can do it is through personal development, because that allows you to associate with very successful people, and you start taking their experiences, apply them, you know, in a matter of years you can manifest them.
What are some different ways somebody can personally develop?
Listen to podcasts, but one of the main ones that most people don't do is they don't step into something that demands more than they think they're worth, because it's very uncomfortable, it's scary, so they never give themselves a shot. If you never step into the uncertainty, you'll never give yourself a shot, because you don't believe something until you experience it.
Can you give us a personal example of that, maybe in your life, where you did that?
Yeah, last time did we talk about the Mitsubishi Eclipse story?
We did.
We might have, right? So, I mean, that was the first time that I started to think, differently. But, I think...
You were talking before even the show started about the homes, right?
Yeah, the homes. That we shared the Lamborghini story. That was a cool story about taking action and having.
The only Lamborghini story was when you pulled up next to Enrique.
No, you want to share the Lamborghini story?
Yeah, no.
From Mitsubishi to Lamborghini.
It was actually Alejandro Hernandez. Like, who is this dude? Like, oh shit, Alejandro. Anyway, no, so I finally had given up on the reason I like this story is because it was the first time that I'd given up on a dream of mine. And it's the first time that I said, oh, that's just for people that are doing way better than I'm doing. And I moved to Woodland Hills, remember that house? And they opened up a Lamborghini dealership at the corner. So every time I'd come down the hill, I'd see Lamborghinis passing left and right. So I'd do what I've always done, which is take action before I have what I need. And I said, well, let me go to the dealer, let me find out how much these cars cost, right? And that's when I found out that the one I wanted costed like $300,000. And I said, well, there's no way I'm going to pay $300,000 for this car. Well, first I said, how much would it cost if I finance it? And I think a 12-year loan was going to end up costing me like $550,000. So I was like, oh, I'm definitely not doing that. So what if I buy it? So I said, okay, the only way I'll get this car is if I buy it cash. So I gave myself a goal of 2 years to come up with $300,000 cash. And then I also said to myself, just so I feel better about myself, I said, okay, well, I'm not going to use it from the current income that I'm making today. So I went back to the field, because at this point I wasn't going to the field anymore. So I came back to the field, and I would work from 8 to 6, and then from 6 to 10.
You're talking about door knocking?
Yeah. From 6 to 10, I would go knock on doors, and every sale that I would get from 6 to 10 p.m., I would put it towards this fund to buy my Lamborghini in 2 years. Because remember, first you become, then you take action, and then you put a date on when you're going to do it by. So I gave myself 2 years. I gave myself by the age of 32 to do it. And I just went non-stop knocking, and sure enough, a year and 10 months passed by, and I have about $155,000 saved. Well, I still need another $145,000, and I only have 2 more months. And what I should have probably said was, oh, this will never happen. But that actually never crossed my mind. What did cross my mind was, well, this seems impossible, but I'm just going to figure this out. I always figure it out. I'm going to focus on what I can focus on, which at the time was the only thing I could focus on, was continue to knock to the deadline, that deadline that I gave myself. Sure enough, 2 weeks later, I get a call from my broker, and he says, hey, I found your car. It's exactly how you want it. He describes it to the T, just how I wanted it.
So you put it out there, then you shared with certain people?
Oh yeah, I said I wanted it white, I wanted it with dark rims, I wanted it with black shaded lights in the back. And he literally describes it for me, and he says, it's brand new, it's actually only 6 months old, it's got 600 miles. The guy that owns it has 4 Lamborghinis. He bought this one for his wife. His wife doesn't want to drive it anymore because she's pregnant, so he wants to sell it. And I said, well, I only have, at this time I probably had $165,000. And he says, I said, I only have $165,000. He's like, oh, no, he'll sell it to you for $150. And I said, the only way I'll give him $150 is if he gives me the pink slip, and on the spot. So he calls me and he says, well, he doesn't have the pink slip, but he'll go to the bank with you tomorrow to pay the difference. Wow. So he paid, car was, I think it ended up being $310 when it was all said and done. So he owed $260 and I gave him $150.
Wow.
Yeah. So literally I wrote a check for $150.
Yeah.
And then he wrote a check for the rest.
Yeah, the power of
which was actually
declaration.
160.
You just collected the evidence along the way.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry, it was 260. He owed 260 grand. I wrote a check for 150. He wrote a check for 110, just to get rid of it. And then I had but the point of that story is so many people quit before their blessing is about to hit, right? And I believe if I would have said, there's no way I can make that happen in the next 2 months, I would have never gotten that phone call. You know, God will start putting once you eliminate the doubt, you fully eliminate the doubt, that's when God will start putting the right people in front of you to make the impossible possible. And that's happened in like
How did you
so many
eliminate the doubt?
times. At the time?
Yeah.
Well, at the time it's because I'd done it so much that I was just like, well, I'll always, figure it out, This time around, for instance, just now present time, I've always flirted with us being a $500 million company, eventually $1 billion company, but the truth is I never really believed it. And it wasn't until I was forced to get into solar, where now we have the combination of alarms and solar, and I'm seeing the opportunity with both of those being bundled the way it is.
I love I don't know if that's PG-13, but I love the analogy that you gave about how
You flirted with a half a billion?
You were in the alarm business, and that was kind of like...
Don't say it. You have to go back to the first episode to watch that.
You have to watch,
right?
yeah. But what happened was once you truly believe it and you eliminate the doubt, it's happened to me so many times in my life that now that I'll wait for that.
I mean, think about it. Doing the numbers in my head. Back to that Lamborghini story. If you gave yourself 2 years, a year and 10 months, you're at 165,000. Halfway through it, you maybe were at 100,000. So at that point, you still needed 2/3 more of the money. But if you would have stopped there, and that opportunity came at 1 year and 10 months, you wouldn't have been able to do it, right? Because you would have stopped at 100,000.
Yeah, exactly. It's it goes. I love Ed's new book because it talks about that, right? It's the power of one more, right? You're one decision away from changing your life if you just can continue to press on and deal with the discomfort that is temporary, because it's only temporary, right? But if you can just get past that, that's where you meet. I love when he says it, you meet your other self, right? If you can go through that adversity.
The best version.
And I mean, that was the story of my life. Like, I became good at what I did, not because I was this great sales guy. I would just knock doors till 10:30 at night. And I remember saying to myself, man, there's no way in hell that I'm leaving without a sale. So when my buddy would come around and pick me up, he was my partner at the time, I would hide in the bushes because I didn't want him to pick me up and distract me. So I would just keep going, and again, numbers game. So what happened is after 10 o'clock at night, boom, I'd get a deal. It was, again, the power of one more door. Well, that got me the result. The result gave me the confidence. Because again, you only believe something in your heart when you experience it. So I had experienced it so many times, those last minute door knocks, right? Last minute not giving up, that eventually I started to believe, like really believe, that by the end of the night, some way, somehow, I'd always get a deal.
Doesn't it feel so good too? When you're door knocking and that last door that you knock on, you get to come inside and you're sitting there, you walk out, you're like, man, if it wasn't for this one more, if I would have gave up one less, I wouldn't have been able to have that succession for that day.
Exactly. It's the biggest identity builder you can have. Like,
Absolutely.
I'd rather have a day like that than getting 5 sales in one day when everything goes great for you. It's when you struggle and you have to go through that struggle and you still get it done that is really what lives your identity. So what ended up happening, because I'd done it so many times, I never looked desperate in front of the client. So even though it was 8:30 at night, 8:40, 8:50 at night, and I was having a presentation with you, and I knew that I hadn't had a sale in the last 7 hours, you would never know it because I was so calm.
Yeah, because of your first door for the night.
Yeah, because I've done it so many times. Now, if I wouldn't have ever experienced that, because I would have quit at 8 o'clock, like most people do, they quit at 8.
Right.
I'll do better tomorrow. Then they'll never believe it because they've never experienced it. Yeah. So that's where you want to empty the tank. And when you empty the tank, that's where everything is created. Everything is created out of the nothing. When you got nothing left, That's when everything is created. But most people, unfortunately, don't keep going until they have nothing left. They quit and when they still have more left, just because they don't see the benefits, right? I think most people overestimate the amount of progress that can happen in 3 months.
It's kind of like
and they underestimate the amount of progress that can happen in 5 years.
And that story right there, and I'm sure you can agree, that story is why so many people flock to you, love you, respect you, want to be around you, because you practice what you preach. Everything you're saying, you've done. Going door knocking, right? You've done. The things you're telling people to do, the Lamborghini story. Everything you practice, what you preach. When we came to your house, looking on your table, you had your laptop. I saw you had your books. You had your highlighter. You had all your little snippets in there. So what you're telling people, you're actually doing yourself. So you're reading the books. You're applying the principles that you're teaching other people, and that's one of the many reasons why I have a lot of love and respect for you.
Yeah, no, it's always constantly, how can you learn a little bit more and constantly just keep trying to improve, right? Get your mind to exercising your mind.
That's
just the way we exercise our bodies, we got to exercise our mind, especially as we get older, right? That's how we get, if you start exercise, if you keep exercising your mind really doesn't get old, right? We're the ones that decide to get old, so I think,
and I think you're probably in better shape now than maybe you even were before, because you're cut up.
No, he's always been cut up.
Yes, but yeah, oh yeah. Even like in your 20s,
you're right. I'm probably in better shape than I was in my 30s.
For those who follow you,
you were good. You were good in your 30s.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm constantly challenging. So
you're reinventing yourself, no matter how old you are.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's like redefining yourself. Okay, how can I improve from my 30s? How can I improve from my 40s? How can I improve from my 50s? And then just knowing that.
And that was a compliment, because you look good now.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and you look great when you were 30.
Thanks. Yeah,
the six-pack.
Yeah, I remember those days for sure.
I still have a six-pack. You were flossing that in the Instagram the other day.
Part of it now is just it keeps me sane. It makes me feel good. When I was younger, it was more about vanity reasons, right? Now, like I probably work out 7 days a week, but it's because I like to. It makes me a better person. It's not because
it's for you.
It's
for
really
mental,
for me,
right?
Yeah. For 30, for 20, I wanted to compete, right? I wanted to look good.
Yeah.
Of course.
And not to say I don't want to look good today, but that's not the driver. The driver is more, it makes me a better father, it makes me a better businessman, it makes me a better person just overall. So that's what I like to do it.
Now, another thing, people that are involved with your company, salespeople and developing, you do a lot of team building. You do a lot of contests, right? You take your team out in different places. Maybe you can kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the idea is you want to make your business fun, right? So in our business, we're really in the dream making, create a millionaire, competition, recognition business. So we've literally taken our business and turned it into a sport, into a competition, again, into recognition for people, because there's millions of people out there that want to get recognized, right? Like, so while the rest of my competition probably plays the same boring game of, we're going to go knocking door to door, we're playing a different game, which is, again, we're in the dream making business that makes you feel like a sports athlete. It makes you feel like I
remember back in the
Academy
day,
Award winner.
You were using like the Highlander, right, and giving out the Rolex.
Yeah.
You still doing that, or is it a different level now?
So it's incentives. We're big on competition. I think without competition, you lack the necessary context to push you beyond your own capacity. And I think if you understand competition, you realize that it makes you better, it makes you more, it makes you stronger, right? It's competing with yourself,
and
right?
this is healthy competition,
No,
where
it's
you're
healthy
not
competition.
losing your character or doing things that you shouldn't be doing in order to get the results that you think you should have, but it's still the character, right?
Yeah, it's the best people I've seen. I mean, the most successful people I've seen, they're very, very competitive. Like even my pastors, like probably one of the most competitive people I've ever met, And we get on this pickleball court, super competitive. And he's a big mentor of mine. So is, Ed Milet, huge competitors. Like, I don't think I've met a guy that's doing great things that's not competitive.
Competitive, yeah.
And I think you just have to have a good relationship with competition, right? Because again, competition makes it fun, and it gets you past beyond your own capacity, because it makes you go, it pulls you to want to do one more, right? So I think you embrace it. So I've always been a fan of embracing, competition, because again, that makes it fun, and the money will be a byproduct of it.
You talked about association, right? So even on association and competitive, it's important to compete against others who are possibly having better results than you or better than you in certain ways, so that you can grow. Because if you're always playing against somebody that you're always winning, there's really no competition.
Exactly.
Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why, your pursuit of greatness is your biggest act of service. Because
your pursuit of greatness
is your biggest act of service. Because, or I should say, one of your biggest acts of service, right? Because by you pursuing greatness, it inspires people to think they could do more, right? Because they're just like, man, I'm just like this guy.
Yeah.
This guy's not better than me.
Put on your pants the same way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's another thing that drives me today is I want to show people, like, look, I'm just a kid that couldn't even complete sentences at 16 years old. So I just worked on it so much that eventually I became pretty decent at it. But if I can continue to push, it gets to inspire more people. It gets to, get my guys to want to aspire to be like you, right?
Did you ever want to give up during that 20 years? You were talking earlier that it wasn't really your passion.
Yeah.
Door knocking wasn't your passion, but now you're full, all in, passionate about the business.
Yeah, exactly. So I think sometimes people maybe think that they have to be passionate about something, and you have to be, I think, first passionate about your why. For me, that was my why and your why is always going to be, your why is your purpose, first of all, and then your purpose is either the people you love or the dreams that God placed in your heart, like the real big dreams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So for me, my first motivator in life was I wanted to take care of my mom, and I wanted to keep the promise that I made to my dad at 10 years old. And I knew that in order to give my family what I wanted to give them, and also live the life that I wanted for myself, I was going to have to step into the uncertainty of something that probably demanded more than I thought I was worth. And for me, that was sales. Because, again, in order to make 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures a year, however much you want to make, you need to find an opportunity that allows you to make that kind of money. So that's number one.
And sales is a big vehicle for that,
that's
right?
That's a big vehicle for that, no matter what you're doing, right?
It's up to you. It's on you.
It's on you. And number two is you need to find someone who's done it before, who has a vested interest in your success, that's going to help you do it. So for me, I knew that I wasn't going to go back to school. Like at that point, there was no way I was going to go to school. I was 21 years old. I wanted to make money at 21. I didn't want to wait till I was 26, 28. I didn't want to play the whole corporate America game,
retire at
office politics, because I kind of dealt with that at the call center that I was with. There was a lot of office politics. Luckily, I was still able to do pretty well for myself, but I want to be stuck there. I wanted to be in charge of my own life, and my why was big enough that I was willing to risk it all, and I was, if you live for yourself, you can settle for less, but if you live for others, it requires all of who you are. And even till this day, I'm not just living for myself, I'm living for all the people that are part of the Skyline family.
And it's gotten bigger along the way.
And it's gotten bigger.
So there's more at stake.
So there's more at stake, and I think in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll do what took us.
How do you handle all the pressure? I mean, it's...
So that never stops.
Yeah.
But, like a goal for me, so for me, like, again, making it fun, right? So for me, I'm like, I think in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll do what took us 23 years to do. And while we do it, I want to create the most 7-figure-a-year earners that my industry has ever taken out, right?
And right there, what you just said, you're going horizontal, number-wise, but then you're also going deep because you're building the people who are also part of it.
Yeah, it's not fun for me if I'm the only one making money. Like I want all my guys to make 7 figures, and that's why I'm taking on more. But what we were talking about earlier, I flirted with 500 million. I flirted with $1 billion before. Like, I thought about it, but I didn't really believe it. I kind of believed 100 million, but I didn't really believe 500 million, right? And now that I've erased that, I've gotten 4 people literally land on my lap that are next level type people. Like, these are the people I needed to take me to that next level.
Mentally, or part of the business?
Part of the business.
Okay.
Because they're better than, one of them is probably the most talented guy I've seen in my industry in 23 years, more talented than me. But that's the thing, you have to be humble enough to know that if you're going to go to the next level, you're going to have to hire people that are way smarter than you and that are better than you.
In those areas.
In those areas.
Absolutely.
Or that, if you can hire a guy that's better than you, be humble enough to hire him. A lot of people take that as a threat. Oh, I don't want to hire him because now everyone's going to look at him as the guy, and I'm not going to be looked upon the same because this guy's better. But man, it's and there are people that have done those type of things, but like the chances of me getting those type of people, it's not that easy. And the fact that once I eliminated all the doubt, how they just fell in my lap, once again, it's the story of my life. That has happened to me over and over, obviously with smaller goals, but now that I'm even thinking bigger, I'm seeing it happen it's happening again. I'm like, crap.
You're collecting the evidence.
I remember this.
Yeah.
Like, all of a sudden, the right people are coming to help me do the impossible. Right? Because all I could do is focus on the things that I can control.
Correct.
But you start thinking about, man, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? That's like a whole different level. I don't understand any of that.
Yeah.
I've never, understood that part of the game. Now I'm hiring people that do understand that part of the game, and now I'm going to learn from them.
Now, you talk about association, and we know the saying, we are who we hang out with. Is there people also in your life that are playing bigger games?
Oh, for sure.
That because they're on a different level, it's helping you think on
bigger.
A different level?
Oh yeah, it helps me think at a bigger level, right? It makes me say, why not me, right? If they can do it, I should be able to do it, right? Mm-hmm. And it inspires you. Like, I'm inspired by them. I'm like, man, they're taking on more. So I feel like God puts these opportunities in front of you, and it's because He has the confidence you can do something with them. So when opportunities like this come in front of me, as much as I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to do it, it's going to be more work, I'm like, wait, God's giving me this opportunity for a reason. I'm going to take it on so I can give more. Where much is given, much is required. So I look at it as an opportunity to keep inspiring. Now, it's to answer another question that you said earlier. People have this misconception that it gets easier. Like, oh, when I get there, it'll get easier. If I can just have 300 employees, that's gonna be easy, right? Like, now I have people that are managing it. It's gonna get a lot easier.
What do they say? More the higher the level, the higher the devil.
Yeah, every level's higher. But to your point, as you grow, you can handle more pressure
Because of the capacity that you've stretched.
Yeah, you've stretched, but you're always going to be a little worried. You're always going to have, there hasn't been a point in my life, and as I talk to people that have done even better than I have, there's always going to be a little worry. There's always going to be a little anxiety. The deal is to deal with it.
What's the well that you draw from that gives you that strength, that gives you that security, that gives you that ability to take on more?
Oh, God. Yeah. That Jesus is knowing that He's with me, knowing that He's got my back, gives me that extra confidence that I need when I take on things that demand more than I think I'm worth, right? But, the other thing that I think my pastor said this on Sunday, which I'll share with you guys because it was just so good, that sometimes people are trying to avoid pain, that they think that, well, if I just work on my faith, I'll avoid pain. Mm-hmm. But life and pain are inseparable. Like, life is about going through pain. That's why Jesus died on the cross for us. Like, there's always going to be pain, right? The point is to stand in front of the pain, not try to go around it, or not, or have this expectation that this pain is not going to be there. The pain is always going to be there, right? Because first of all, that's the only way you grow, is going through the adversity. And he just, you know, how he put it so well. He said, you know, when we come into this earth, we're given birth, and the mother goes through the most pain she's probably had to go through in her entire life.
Yeah.
And then 5 seconds later, she's having the best joy she's ever had.
And all that pain has subsided. Yeah. Now she's just looking at the joy of all that.
Exactly.
On the other side of it.
So on the other side of pain is your greatness. So just knowing that you have to go through pain and withstand that pain, stand in front of it, and eventually, you know, achieve it, right? Beat it, and then you grow from it.
We wouldn't all be here if our mothers didn't want to go through that pain.
Yeah.
A lot of times people see the ones that are on the front with the success, but it's really those who are at home providing the support and releasing the other person to do what they do, and the other people at home, kids and so forth, are also being taken care of. So shout out to the other halves, or the dads, depending on whoever is the one that's out in the front. But yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So there's a verse that my pastor gave on Sunday that it's Proverbs, I think 16:30. It says the righteous will fall 7 times. But
the righteous will fall 7 times.
Yeah, but they will rise up. The wicked will fall and won't get up. Right? So what that passage tells you is that even if you are a man of faith or a woman of faith, you're going to get dropped. You're going to fall. The difference is how fast do you get up. You know, I look at myself and I'm like a Rocky Balboa. It's just like I get knocked down, I get back up. I get knocked down, I get back up. That's probably one of my superpowers. I just get right back up, and the difference is how long you're going to stay in the ground, or you know, versus bouncing right back up.
What does Les Brown say? If you fall down, make sure you're looking up, because if you can look up, then you can get up.
You can get up, and you get up one more time, and that's why I don't believe in. As long as you don't quit, there is no failure. As long as you keep trying. Sure, you're going to fall a bunch of times.
Reinventing.
But if you keep getting up,
Yeah.
and you keep getting up, and you keep getting up, you know, that's how you build perseverance. That's how you have resiliency. And resiliency, that's what it is. It's your ability to get back up. And that's why I love that verse, because it tells you that even if you're a man of faith, you're going to get dropped. Or a woman of faith, you're going to get dropped.
Not if, you are.
It's not a question of if.
That's right.
You're going to get dropped.
But what are you going to do when you...
Exactly. Versus, you know, the wicked, you know, they get dropped, but they don't come back up. And that's why, you know, when you try to take shortcuts, you know, you might see some people that are like, man, why is that guy successful? He's just cutting corners and he's doing things that aren't of integrity. Eventually, it catches up to them. And then they don't get back up. Right? So everybody's got to fall. Everybody's going to go through the pain. And that was one thing that really spoke to me, because anytime you're going to step up to the next level, and we want to, because that's what gives you fulfillment. Fulfillment comes from growth and contribution. So if you're going to grow, the only way you can grow is to go through adversity. Otherwise, you can't grow. So I just love how that whole thing comes in together for us, because Jesus basically gave us the example.
Yeah.
You know, like, hey, I'm going to go through the same pain that you're probably going to, and he went through way more pain than any of us will ever have to go through.
Absolutely.
But you talk about a leader there, that's, I mean, leading by example right there. And yeah, it's just, it's inevitable. And the more you can embrace it, then, and have that expectation that it's supposed to be that way, then you're going to succeed. I think the reason sometimes people don't succeed is they know it's going to be a little painful, but they have no idea how painful it's going to be. In regards to I mean, you know this, right? The sleepless nights, you're up at freaking till 3 in the morning, you're up again at 6. You know, you have to go through those type of moments. Not all the time, but when you get in those modes where you got to just figure stuff out, there's some sleepless nights.
Yeah.
You know, there's times where you don't have time to hang out with friends. You don't have time. I mean, you become obsessed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know leadership is important within your company, right? How do you develop leaders? Is it something that you see in them? Is it based off the results? How do you develop them, and how do you keep them growing as leaders?
Well, I think they have to want to become a leader. I think the beauty about a leader, I think it's a skill set that you can develop, right? But we're big on servant leadership, right? Which is, I think we sometimes overcomplicate things in regards to leadership, right? If you truly care about someone's interest first before your interest, you're going to get to influence them. And then if you get to influence them, you get to lead them. But it's all about, knowing your product. You need to be so good that you can explain the product to your people so that you can train them, you can be in the field with them to build that empathy because you're with them at that point. That's when you talked about earlier, why did I go with my team? I wanted to create empathy. I wanted to show them, look, I know what you're going through. I'm going with you, right? And while I'm there, I'm paying attention to the inefficiencies, right? Like, what are the little words that they're switching up that are causing them not to get the sale? Because sometimes it could be one word that they're saying that, believe it or not, make the difference. So, I think with leadership, it starts with your core values. You mold them into, and they have to. You have to live them too. You can't just talk about them. You have to be about them. For us, one of our core values is number one is faith, right? And faith is I call it the projection of the most beautiful possible thing for the future, right? Versus fear is the opposite of that. It's the projection of the worst possible thing for the future, right? Faith is acting in expectancy that it's going to happen. It's positive mental attitude. A second core value for us is we're about integrity. It's about truth. Keep the promises you make to yourself. Keep the promises you make to other people. The other one is truth is also knowing why you're doing the business. If you don't know why you're doing the business, then you don't know your truth. So you're violating the truth principle, which is
number 2.
Why are you doing it, right? The third one is service. That's where the whole pursuit of greatness is one of your biggest acts of service. You realize that the more you do, the more you can give, because you can operate out of abundance. So that's a good way to serve. It's always acting, making sure that you have people's best interest at heart first, right? It's again goes with integrity, and that's how you're able to sustain business for a long time. We're big on education, right? That's a core value of ours as well. Ambition combined with humility. That's a big one.
Explain that one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Well, if you don't have ambition, and then all you have is humility. Let's just say all you have is humility.
Being humble.
Yeah, that's all you have, right? Then you end up doing nothing, and you call it humility. But if you have ambition combined with humility, then you could pursue the best version of yourself, right? But you got to have a little ambition to want to pursue the best version of yourself, right?
Yeah, it doesn't just happen.
It doesn't just happen, right? So, but if you're just like, I don't really need that stuff, I don't need to improve, I'm good where I'm at, then yeah, you want to call it humility, but you're just not doing anything.
Right.
It's almost like a word you can hide behind.
Exactly.
Right? So somebody to be the best version of themselves, it has to be intentional, and there's a responsibility on that person to take action.
Exactly. And now the flip side of that is you don't just want to be ambitious without humility, right? Because then ambition by itself is not good. But if you can combine ambition with humility, it's
Yeah, I've never quite heard it that way.
Yeah, it's a great. You gotta have both.
That right there could be a game changer, because there could be people, stepping on each side, not knowing where.
And that humility is, if you're saying, okay, I'm going to go and grab that, but yet if you have people around you, like, let's all go grab that, right? Let's all lock arms and let's go together. Humility is also, you're looking for other people to come with you. And you talked about that at the beginning of the show, that it's not about just you being successful at what you're doing, but it's now seeing other people being successful as now your really true success.
Yeah, and it drives you, because if you're just by yourself, you're not going to have the energy at all times. But if you have other people, when you're feeling down, they'll fill your cup.
Yeah.
Because now you see them succeed. Right? So I can't tell you how many times I was like, man, I'm tired today. I don't want to do this. And then I would see one of my new guys that we just trained, that I know has big dreams, accomplish, a great, thing that day. And then I'm automatically fueled with energy. I just basically took his energy, right? Because I'm like, damn, I made a difference in this guy's life. I'm going to go crush it right now. So versus if you're all by yourself, it's easier for you to hang up the gloves, and you're always going to want to quit. If you're doing big things, that's how you know if you're doing big things. If you're doing big things, you're going to want to quit a lot. And the difference is you won't, right? Where some people actually will, but it's also a fallacy to think that you're never going to want to quit. Like if you're doing some pretty big things, I wanted to quit last Tuesday. I was just having one of those days where everything was going wrong, I was just like, do I really need to do all this? But I already know that was just a temporary emotion.
Yeah.
I already knew the next day I was going to feel great.
So
sure enough, the next day, I'm freaking have the best day of my life.
You went back to your routine.
I went back to my routine, got up early.
Remembered your why?
Remembered the why, did all that. So just, not making those decisions when you're in one of those places, but, anytime you're doing big things, you're going to want to quit.
Do you have any, coaches or mentors that call you on a regular basis, or do you have any visuals that you put up throughout your house that when you are having those Tuesday days that you see something or hear something that helps you to get out of that?
So the podcasts that I listen to, the books that I read, it's just working on your mind. Sometimes you stop doing those things, and you just got to get back to your point, get back to the basics. But again, after a while, you've done it so many times that you already know it's part of it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how many times have you wanted to quit? Well, you're just like,
yeah, it's
F this, right?
It's constant reinventing the conversation that is using me at whatever moment. And everybody has a I quit level. The question is, at what level?
Yeah.
And some.
What are you really quitting?
Well, right? What I mean by that is, some people will quit on, let's just say, a job. Some people will quit on a business.
Or a project.
Or a project.
Some people will quit.
Some people will quit when they die. But what's that quit level? Your IQ, I call it. And the way you elevate your IQ is simply, like you shared earlier, just constantly filling up your why. Why you're doing it. And that's what I was asking you earlier, which was, what would you tell the audience if they're not sure what their passion is, or what would there be their why for them to continue or starting? Because you've had a lot of mentors, you've had a lot of education, but someone who's just starting, just turned on the podcast and they're hearing you for the first time. Because I've spoken to young peeps, and you ask them what they're up to, and
either everything or nothing.
Yeah,
they're either all over the place, and they don't know where to start.
There you go.
Yeah, no, you find something, you find out what your why is, right? So again, your why could be the people you love. So what do they? You might have. I believe that God blesses people in your family to help others, right? So like for me, I honestly, my mom would always pray for me.
Yeah.
I said this on the last one, every morning, every night. And I think a lot of my blessings come because of her, right? And I needed to find, I didn't know what I wanted to do. All I wanted to do is I wanted to provide for my family, and there was certain things that I wanted in life. And at the time, again, I didn't want to do sales, but that was the only thing that I could do to help my family get out of the situation that we were in.
So do you think you knew the destiny or the destination, just not the vehicle to get there yet?
Exactly. You find the vehicle based on what your why is, right? And at the time, for me, like the why was I needed money. I was obsessed with making $100,000 a year. So just to kind of break it down and simplify it, I was obsessed with making $100,000 a year. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew why I was going to do it. That's how I was going to get my family out of the situation that we were in. That's how I was going to keep the promise I made to my dad. That's how I was going to be able to buy my mom her house. Well, as much as I didn't want to do sales, that's what I had to do, right? So your dreams got to be bigger than any excuse you can make on why you can't do it. And then you just got to give yourself a shot. So as much as you think you cannot do it, you just, again, I took the mindset of an overachiever, which my identity was so low that I thought to myself, if I just outwork everyone and I work harder than anybody else, I could eventually beat them. Now, whether that was true or not, that's the story I sold myself on, and that's what gave me the belief that I could beat people up, right? I could beat people in the end, right? Because I'd see them leave early, I'd see them mess around, and I wasn't messing around.
And you were fueled by your why.
And I was fueled by my why, right? Mm-hmm. So I kept, here's a perfect example. There was many times that I wanted to quit on the doors, and I had this vision of my mom. She'd come home and her car didn't have any air conditioning because she used to clean offices. I would just see her with these buckets of cleaning material, and we lived on the second story. Mm-hmm. So I would come down and help her because she was struggling. She'd be all sweating, right? So whenever I wanted to quit, I would visualize that and me as a kid coming to help her. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm not going to let her, I'm not quitting. If I quit, I'm quitting on my mom. If I quit, I'm quitting on my kids, right? Because how are you supposed to tell your kids you can go after everything you want if they don't see you improving?
So does somebody have to have the same mindset that has a why from desperation to somebody that has a why from abundance?
So, great question. So there's two things that motivate you. One is the avoidance of pain, and the other one is the pleasure of where you're going. So those are the two things that make you take action towards something. So for me, it's always been a combination of both. It was the avoidance of pain was what caused me to take action, but I was always I didn't do it intentionally at the time. I didn't know, but what I was doing, I would always touch the dream. I would always reward myself. I'd go to a nice restaurant. You've always been great at this, where you go and you experience nice things. Life is about experiences. Mm-hmm. And that's what I call touching the dream. That's the pleasure of where you're going. So for instance, back to the formula, when you want to buy a house, first you say, I want to become a homeowner. I am a homeowner. I'm not a renter anymore. Mm-hmm. So because of that, I'm going to take action before I have what I need. I'm going to go find out get the blueprint of what I need to make this happen. And then I'm going to have a date on when I'm going to do it by. Well, that's exactly the pleasure of where you're going. Even though you don't have it yet, you're taking action before you have what you need. And that's what gives you the pleasure of where you're going. And that's what makes you take action. But if you never touch the dream, then you're never going to have the pleasure of where you're going. So why would you want to work? Like all you know.
Now when you say touch the dream, that's like pretty much bringing the future in the present.
Yeah, so touch the dream can go like, hey, today, it's like you have an abundance mentality where you're not trying to hoard all your money. You go take your family out to a nice steakhouse. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And maybe spend $250, or in some cases, nowadays $600. But back in those days, I remember spending $200 on myself and a date. Right? Yeah. I was 18 years old, 19 years old, and I was like, whoa, this is pretty cool. Like, I still remember the first time I went to a fancy steakhouse. My idea of a fancy steakhouse was Sizzler, right? So the first time I went to a steakhouse and I ordered it, shrimp. True story, Long Beach, it was one of these fancy ones. The guy that got me into the alarm business took me to the first one, a piano guy playing. And I'm like the rookie going to a fancy restaurant, and they asked me, how do you want your steak? I'm like, well done. The
way Sizzler does it.
The whole table turned on me like I was crazy. They all started laughing at me. They literally started laughing at me. I'm like, what are you laughing about? Like, oh, you're not supposed to get your steak well done, especially when you're spending that kind of money on it. But you learn, and you're like, oh, okay, cool.
Now, being in that atmosphere, somewhere where you haven't been, does that expand your mind?
Yeah, it expands your mind, and What's funny about that, though, is, again, it goes back to what we've been talking about. Believe it or not, that demands more than you think you're worth. Because you're like, whoa, I'm used to like eating at like McDonald's and King Taco and those type of places. Or I'm used to going to Sizzler. Now I'm going to this fancy restaurant. Are people going to look at me weird? Are they going to laugh at me? Like, these are all thoughts that come to your mind. And then you're there, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute. I can see myself here.
Yeah.
Like, this is pretty cool, you know? So, but again, if you never experience it, then how would you even know it exists, right? So, and if you don't know it exists, why would you want to work for it?
So the why gets you to the place, and then while you're there, the destination also helps you to expand your why.
Yeah, you expand. Okay, well, if I want this kind of lifestyle. If I want, you know, and you're, again, it changes at different times of your life, right? Like I said on the last one, what drives me now is I like to donate a lot of money to my church, right? Because if that can bring more people to Christ, that's a big deal, right? At 21 years old, that wasn't what was driving me, right? So you have different motivators, and from there and then you find something and you become really good at it. Like, so that's another thing. You don't try to do 6, 7. I know a lot of people try to say, hey, have multiple streams of income. That's not exactly true.
Unless they're all successful.
First, you have to have one bread and butter business that's freaking crushing it, that you've become an expert at. Then from then, you can spin off some other businesses, because it takes money to make money. But this fallacy of like, oh, I'm going to start 5 businesses at the same time, and I'm going to become filthy rich, or I'm going to become filthy successful, like, that's not going to happen, because you need to become an expert at one. If you talk to most people that have different streams of income coming, they always had one that was like their kick-ass business, and then from that one, then they take on
the
other
jack
things.
of all trades, the master of none.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
And you want to plant your roots so deep in the ground that at any type of season, the hurricane or whatever season it is, you're implanted strong.
Strong, and in one of your businesses, you have to pay the price.
Oh yeah.
Then maybe in the other business, it doesn't take you that long, because you've already paid the price on the first one.
Yeah, sometimes you're just an investor in something else.
Yeah.
Somebody else is paying the price, but now you're paying the ticket.
Right. Or like, you know, what we're doing in solar now is going to take me way shorter time than what took me in the alarms, because I've sort of already paid the price on that. Now I'll still pay the price a little bit in solar, but it won't be as much.
Because you got the people in the process already in place. The product, it can come and go. You're building the people, and you've already perfected the process.
So sometimes you see this guy like, oh man, that guy, man, look at him. He started another business and he's kicking ass. At some point, maybe not the last 2 businesses he opened up, because he's just been crushing it. At some point, he paid the price and some.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you want to pay the price, because that's how you're able to sustain success for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just having a conversation with my wife before you guys got here, and I said, man, I really think you're going to do something big pretty soon, because she's putting so much effort nonstop that when you put that much effort into your business, it's inevitable that you're going to have the effect come back.
Yeah.
Right? If you keep planting seeds, there's always going to be a harvest. And I remember just me going through it in the downtime in 2020, just 14 months in a row. Like, I was taking so much massive action towards my dream that I already knew that it was just a matter of time before it was going to explode. Because if you put that much effort into something, there's always going to be a return. The problem is people quit too soon. But if you put that much effort and you're just not, you know, her story is incredible too. Like, before she came out on Housewives, what most people don't know is she spent an entire year posting on Instagram about working out, in different classes that she was working out in, and her weight struggle. But like non-stop, just posting every day. And sometimes even I would tell her, like, hey, what do you think's gonna come out of this? And she's like, I don't know, but I know something big is gonna happen. And I honestly believe she would have never gotten that show if she wouldn't have put that literally for an entire year, just posting every day.
One more.
One more. And so, now she's working on some other stuff, and I see her just, putting so much massive action towards what she does, and I'm like, it's only a matter of time before you do something big, because there's no way you could be putting that much effort and not get a return.
So I'm sure we can sit here for hours.
Yeah.
And I think we need to do another. But
Careful, because you're holding.
But what is your day look like? Your mindset before we get ready to wrap it up. What does your day look like on an average?
So the most important thing I do is my gratitude exercise. That's, again,
I love this one.
If you're grateful, you can start living inside out, because what always happens is every time we wake up, we tend to worry. So, if you ask yourself the 7 questions on gratitude, which is, what am I happy about? What am I excited about? What am I proud of? What am I grateful for? What am I committed to? What am I enjoying? And then what do I love? Who do I love? And then the sub question to that is, what about it makes you feel that way? So you have to answer it. Like, what about it makes you feel this way, right? So I was doing my gratitude exercise today. I was like, what am I committed to?
And every day does it have to be? Is it the same thing, or?
No, you change it. Yeah, you can change it. Sometimes it takes you longer to think about, right? Because you want to do it daily, so that then your subconscious mind starts looking for those answers to those questions. And then again at nighttime you do the same thing, which is, in what way was I a giver today? What did I learn today? And then how did today add to my quality of life? So when you do that every day, now you throughout the day you're going to look for opportunities to answer those questions. Right? So how was I a giver today? Well, now, you might want to take a phone call of someone that's going through a bad day and maybe lighten up her world or lighten up his world, right? Even though you're probably busy, right? You're like, wait, let me try to make a difference in this person's life, right? So that stuff, that's probably the most important thing that you need that you want to do, because that's how you start living inside out versus outside. And the times I've not done that, I start to get I'm just not as happy, because we're pre-wired to worry. So the more you can cultivate gratitude, it's a huge game changer.
So you start off your day with gratitude.
So with gratitude, then I'll read a chapter of the Bible.
Any chapter, you just open or you?
I have my Bible tells me what day, what to read, and so I'll do that, and always kind of looking for something that inspires me and stuff. And then from there, I'll try to read 5 pages of just whatever book I'm reading, and then from there I'll go to the gym, and then from there I'll come back, play with the kids for a little bit before they go to school, and then from there I start.
And what time do you wake up on a regular basis?
5 o'clock, 5 in the morning. And I try to, in a perfect world, go to bed by 10, 9:30 would be good.
Well, man.
So we got to wrap it up, because it's already going to be 10.
So we want to thank you, Edwin, for being on our show, backed by popular demand. A lot of great nuggets there.
Yeah.
I know our audience is taking a lot of great notes. So we appreciate your time. We love you. We thank you for being on the show.
And thanks for having me. I'm so excited for you guys and this value that you're going to add. You guys know a lot of successful people, so I can only imagine, all the nuggets that are going to be shared on your show. So.
Yeah, we look forward to it, and thank you.
Grateful for you guys doing
busy
this.
schedule,
Absolutely.
family, business,
Yeah.
and we got you one more time.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you guys made it.
Thank you.